The warning bells rang through the crystal halls of the Galactic Council building. Ambassador Zelthera felt her wingtips shake as she hurried down the long corridor. She had never heard these bells before. They meant danger was coming from outside their galaxy sector. Other aliens rushed past her. The tall Veltar people moved like walking glass, their bodies clear and fragile. The Quindle floated by like living clouds, their gas bodies glowing bright blue with worry. Everyone was scared. Something was coming that they did not understand. Zelthera entered the great meeting room. 12 different alien races sat in their special chairs. Each chair was made for their body type. Some aliens needed water tanks. Others needed special air to breathe. The room buzzed with nervous talk in many different languages. Council leader Tishalan stood at the front. His 4 silver arms moved as he spoke. His voice was calm, but his eyes showed fear.
Friends, we have a problem. Our deep space sensors have found something new. Ships are coming toward us. How many ships?
We do not know who they are. The room went quiet. For over 1,000 years, no new species had entered their space. All the known races were already part of the council. They lived in peace. They shared resources. They never fought wars. Many ships? Asked Counselor Vexmoth. He was small and round, with green skin that changed colors when he was upset. Right now, it was turning dark purple. 30 vessels, Tishalan replied. They are moving very fast. Faster than our ships can go. They will reach our border in 3 days. The aliens looked at each other with worry. Their own defense fleet had only 12 ships. These ships were old and slow. They were used for rescuing lost travelers and stopping small accidents. No one had needed real weapons for so long that most aliens forgot what war looked like. What did their energy readings show? Asked Ambassador Colvin. She was from the insect-like hive race. Her compound eyes could see many different types of light and energy. Tishalan touched a control pad. A large screen appeared in the air above them, showed strange energy patterns that none of them recognized. The patterns were rough and wild. They looked nothing like the smooth, clean energy that powered council ships. These readings are very different from ours, Tishalan said. Their engines burn much hotter. Their power systems are stronger. And there is something else. Has energy patterns that look like weapons. Very big weapons. The room filled with worried whispers. The word weapons was almost foreign to most of them. Why would anyone need weapons in space? There were no enemies out there. Space pirates had not existed for hundreds of years. Maybe they are just tools, suggested Diplomat Warren. His people were known for being hopeful about everything. Maybe they used those energy patterns for mining or building, but deep down everyone felt that was not true. The energy readings looked angry and dangerous. They looked like things made for fighting and destroying. Meanwhile, far out in the dark between stars, Captain Jake Morrison stood on the bridge of his ship. The UES Liberty was the biggest ship in the human fleet, was made of thick metal and covered with weapons. Scars from old battles marked its hull. Jake was 45 years old. His face was hard and lined from years of war. A long scar ran down his left cheek from a fight with machine enemies that had tried to kill all humans. His hands were rough from working with weapons and tools. His eyes were always watching for danger. How much longer until we reach their space? Jake asked Commander. Lisa Grant stood next to him. She was younger than Jake, but just as experienced in battle. Her brown hair was pulled back tight. Her uniform was clean but showed signs of being repaired many times. 2 days, sir, Lisa said, looking at her computer screen. Our scouts report a large space station ahead. It looks like a trading post. No weapons that we can see. Jake nodded. Behind them, 29 other human ships flew in formation. These ships had fought the machine war for 10 years. They had learned to work together like a pack of wolves. Every captain knew their job. Every crew member was ready for battle. The humans did not know about the Galactic Council. They had been traveling for months, looking for a new place to build colonies. Earth was safe now, but it was crowded. Humans needed room to grow. They needed new worlds to call home. Sir, "We are getting strange signals from ahead," reported Lieutenant Amy Brooks from her station. She was the ship's communication officer. Her job was to listen for messages from other ships. "What kind of signals?" Jake asked. "They sound like attempts to talk to us, but the language is not human. The computer cannot translate it yet." Jake thought about this. If there were other intelligent beings ahead, humans needed to be careful. The last time humans met new intelligence, it was the machines that tried to kill everyone. Jake would not let his people be caught off guard again. "Tell the fleet to stay ready," Jake ordered. "Weapons powered, but not aimed. Shields up, but not at full strength. We want to look ready, but not like we are attacking." Lisa nodded and sent the orders to the other ships. This was how humans always approached unknown situations. They hoped for peace, but prepared for war. Their history had taught them that being ready to fight was the best way to avoid fighting. Back in the council chamber, the debate continued. Some aliens wanted to run away. Others wanted to try talking to the strangers. A few suggested asking the approaching ships to go around their space. "We should follow the old protocols," said Counselor Nimdal. She was very old, even for her. "Long-lived race, we send a welcome message. We offer them trade and friendship. We invite them to join our peaceful community." "But what if they do not want peace?" asked another voice. This came from Pilot Rexstar, who commanded the council's small defense fleet. He was one of the few aliens who remembered old stories about war. What if those weapon readings mean they like to fight? The room grew quiet again. This was a thought that scared everyone. Their whole society was built on the idea that all intelligent life wanted peace. They shared resources, solved problems by talking, and helped each other grow. The idea that someone might choose violence over peace was almost impossible for them to understand. "That cannot be," said Tishlin firmly. "Any race smart enough to build starships must be civilized. They must understand that cooperation is better than conflict. We'll send our standard greeting and welcome them properly." But as the council prepared their welcome message, none of them understood what was really coming. They had lived in peace for so long that they forgot what warriors looked like. They thought all intelligent life would be like them, careful, gentle, and afraid of violence. The humans approaching their space were different. They came from a world of storms and earthquakes, predators and diseases. They had fought each other for thousands of years before learning to work together. When machines tried to destroy them, humans fought back with everything they had. Now these Deathworld children were about to meet aliens who had never known true danger. Neither side understood the other yet. The council saw the humans as potential friends who just needed to learn peaceful ways. The humans saw unknown aliens who might be threats to human survival. The meeting that was coming would change everything for both sides. The galaxy was about to learn what happened when gentle gardeners met born warriors. The humans were about to discover they were no longer the most dangerous thing in the universe. The meeting place was Kepler Station, a huge trading post built inside a giant asteroid. The station was 3 miles wide and had docking bays for hundreds of ships. Bright lights covered its surface like tiny stars. Inside, aliens from 12 different worlds bought and sold goods in the largest marketplace in the Galaxy Council. Speaker Tishlin walked through the station's main corridor with his diplomatic team. His 4 silver arms carried data tablets and translation devices. Behind him came 6 other aliens, each representing their species. They wore their finest ceremonial clothes, flowing robes covered in jewels, golden armor that sparkled under the lights, and crowns made from rare crystals. The aliens had spent 2 days preparing for this meeting. They had studied every first contact protocol in their history books. They had prepared gifts of art, music, and scientific knowledge to share with the newcomers. Their translation computers had been updated with the most sophisticated language programs available. "Remember," Tishlin said to his team, "these beings may seem strange to us, but they are clearly intelligent. They build starships and travel between stars. They must want the same things we want: peace, trade, and friendship." Ambassador Zelthara adjusted her crystal wings nervously. She had been chosen to speak for the Veltar people because she was good with languages. But the energy readings from the human ships still worried her. Those weapons were so much bigger than anything the council had ever seen. What if they do not understand our peaceful ways? She asked quietly. Then we will teach them, Tyslan replied with confidence. We have brought every civilization in this sector into our alliance through patience and kindness. These humans will be no different. In the docking bay, a human shuttle approached the station. The shuttle was dark gray and covered with thick metal plates. It looked like it had been built to survive attacks rather than to look pretty. Small weapons could be seen mounted on its sides. Captain Danny Rodriguez piloted the shuttle with steady hands. He was 38 years old and had fought in more battles than he could count. How scars covered his arms from close combat with machine enemies. His brown eyes missed nothing as he studied the alien station through his window. Look at this place, Danny said to his passenger. No defensive systems, no patrol ships, no guards that I can see. These aliens either trust everyone or they have never met anyone dangerous. Ambassador Kate Sullivan sat in the co-pilot seat, studying her notes about alien customs. She was 42 years old and had been Earth's top diplomat before the machine. War started. The war had changed her from a gentle negotiator into someone who understood that sometimes talking was not enough. Kate wore a simple blue uniform with no decorations. Her blonde hair was cut short for practical reasons. Her face was serious, but not unfriendly. She carried no weapons, but Danny knew she could handle herself in a fight if needed. The council's message was very polite, Kate said. They want to welcome us into something called the Peaceful Alliance. They promise trade benefits and shared technology. Sounds too good to be true, Danny replied as he docked the shuttle. In my experience, when someone offers you everything for free, they usually want something big in return. The shuttle bay doors opened with a soft hiss. Danny and Kate stepped out onto the station deck. The air smelled strange, too clean and filled with unfamiliar scents from alien plants. Music played from hidden speakers. The lighting was gentle and warm. Waiting for them was the most unusual group Kate had ever seen. The tall silver being with 4 arms stepped forward first. His voice came through a small device that translated his words into English. Welcome. Friends from the stars, Tyslan said with a bow. I am Council Speaker Tyslan. We greet you with open hearts and peaceful intentions. Kate stepped forward and bowed back. I am Ambassador Kate Sullivan, representing the United Earth Systems. This is Captain Danny Rodriguez of our military escort. We thank you for your welcome. The other aliens introduced themselves one by one. There was Zelthera, with her crystal wings. Counselor Vexmith, whose skin kept changing colors, and several others whose names Kate tried hard to remember. Each one seemed genuinely happy to meet the humans. They walked together to a large conference room. The walls were covered with beautiful artwork from different alien worlds. A long table made of smooth white stone sat in the center. Chairs of many different sizes and shapes surrounded it. Please sit and be comfortable, Tyslan said. We have prepared refreshments that our computers say are safe for your biology. Danny remained standing near the door while Kate took a seat. His eyes constantly scanned the room for threats. The aliens noticed this and whispered among themselves. They seemed confused by his behavior. Now then, Tyslan began. Let us discuss how humanity can join our great alliance. We offer membership to all peaceful species who wish to share in our prosperity. Kate leaned forward with interest. What does membership involve? First, you would agree to our Charter of Peaceful Coexistence, explained Counselor Vexmoth, his skin turning a pleasant green color. This means no weapons, larger than personal defense tools. All disputes must be settled through mediation. Violence is forbidden except in cases of immediate self-defense. Danny's jaw tightened, but he said nothing. Kate kept her expression neutral. Second, continued Zelthara, you would follow our resource management protocols. Each species is assigned certain sectors for colonization based on population needs and environmental impact studies. This prevents conflicts over territory. You mean we cannot choose where to build our colonies? Kate asked carefully. The council chooses the best locations for everyone, Tyslan said proudly. We have prevented all territorial disputes for over 800 years this way. No one fights when everyone has what they need. Kate felt a cold feeling in her stomach. And what about population growth? Can our people have as many children as they want? The aliens looked at each other. With surprise, this was apparently an odd question to them. "Of course not," said Counselor Nimdal, the elderly alien Kate had heard about. "Unlimited population growth leads to resource depletion and social instability. Each species is given reproduction quotas based on their current territories and resource consumption." Danny's hand moved slightly toward his sidearm before he caught himself. Kate saw the movement and quickly spoke up. "These are interesting policies," she said diplomatically. "But humans have different traditions about family and territory. You would need time to consider such changes." "Do not worry," Tishlin said with what might have been a smile. "Our integration department will help your people adjust. Within a few generations, humans will understand the benefits of managed growth and assigned territories." The room went quiet. Kate realized that these aliens saw humans as children who needed to be taught how to behave. They could not imagine that humans might disagree with their rules. "Tell me about your defense capabilities," Danny said suddenly. All the aliens turned to look at him. "What happens if someone attacks your alliance?" The aliens looked confused by the question. "Attacks?" asked Vexmoth, his skin turning yellow with puzzlement. "Who would attack us?" "All civilized races understand that violence is wasteful and destructive." "But what if uncivilized races show up?" Danny pressed. "If someone wants to take your resources by force?" "That has never happened," Tishlin said with certainty. "Our defense fleet handles emergencies like asteroids and solar storms. We have 12 patrol ships equipped with tractor beams and rescue equipment." Danny stared at him. 12 ships? "For this entire sector, why would we need more?" asked Selthera innocently. Kate and Danny exchanged a look. In that moment, both humans realized they were dealing with people who had lived in peace for so long that they forgot what danger looked like. These aliens had no real military, no understanding of warfare, and no concept that some problems could not be solved by talking. "I see," Kate said slowly. "In these 12 ships, what kind of weapons do they carry?" "Weapons." Tishlin repeated the word like it tasted bad. "They carry rescue tools and emergency equipment." "Why would rescue ships need weapons?" Danny could not hide his shock anymore. "How do you defend yourselves? What do you do if someone refuses to follow your rules?" "We talk to them until they understand," Nimdal said kindly. "All intelligent beings want peace once they see its benefits. Violence is just what happens when people do not communicate properly." The meeting continued for 2 more hours, but Kate knew it was hopeless. These aliens lived in a fairy tale world where everyone was nice and problems could always be solved with kind words. They had never faced real evil or desperate enemies. They could not imagine that someone might choose war over peace. When the meeting ended, the aliens seemed pleased. They thought they had made new friends who just needed some gentle guidance. They had no idea that they had just shown 2 warriors from a death world exactly how helpless they really were. As Danny and Kate walked back to their shuttle, neither spoke until they were alone. "They are like children," Danny said finally. "Powerful, advanced children who have never been hurt." Kate nodded sadly. "And they want to turn us into children too. No weapons, no freedom to expand, no right to decide our own future." "What do we tell Admiral Carter?" 3 days after the failed meeting at Kepler Station, the universe changed forever. It started with a single message that came from the edge of the galaxy. The transmission was weak and broken, full of static and fear. "Emergency, ... emergency. This is Research Station Omega-7, ... We are under attack. Unknown hostiles approaching. They're not responding to communication attempts. They're destroying everything." The message cut to silence. Council Speaker Tishlon stood in the emergency command center, his 4 silver arms shaking as he read the reports coming in from the outer rim. The command center was deep inside the Council's main planet, protected by miles of rock and metal. It had been built centuries ago but never used for a real crisis. "How many stations have gone silent?" he asked. 17 so far, replied Technician Moldar, a small blue alien whose job was to monitor deep space communications. His voice was barely a whisper. "The attack started 6 hours ago. Every station that tries to make contact just stops transmitting." On the main display screen, A map of the galaxy showed red dots where research stations had gone dark. The red dots formed a line moving inward toward the populated systems. Whatever was out there was coming fast and destroying everything in its path. "What are our sensors showing?" asked Ambassador Zelthera. She had flown here as fast as her crystal wings could carry her when the emergency alarm sounded. "The energy readings are massive," Moldar said, his fingers dancing over his control panel. "It's much bigger than anything we have ever seen. It's the attacking. Ships are converting matter into energy on a huge scale. They seem to be eating the space stations." The word eating made everyone in the room go quiet. The idea that machines could consume matter and grow stronger was the stuff of old nightmares. Stories that parents told children to make them behave. It was not supposed to be real. "Have we tried talking to them?" Tishlin asked, hopefully. "Yes, sir. We have sent messages in over 200 languages. We have transmitted mathematical sequences, music, and even pictures showing peaceful intentions. They do not respond. They just keep destroying everything they find." Counselor Vexmoth's skin had turned completely black with fear. "What do our defense ships report?" "Defense? Fleet Alpha made contact with the hostiles 2 hours ago," Moldar said quietly. "All 4 ships were destroyed in less than 3 minutes. They never got close enough to use their rescue tools." The aliens in the command center looked at each other with growing panic. Their whole world was built on the idea that all problems could be solved by talking. But these attackers did not want to talk. They only wanted to destroy. "Send more ships," ordered Tishalon. "Send all of them. Maybe if we show them we mean no harm," Sir Moldar interrupted softly. "We only have 8 ships left. Based on what happened to Alpha Fleet, they will not survive either." Meanwhile, at the edge of the system, Admiral Rick Carter stood on the bridge of the UES Defiance, humanity's most powerful warship. Rick was 55 years old and had gray hair that showed his years of service. His face was calm, but his eyes were hard as steel. He had fought against machine enemies before and knew exactly what they were dealing with. "Show me the tactical display," Rick ordered. Lieutenant Amy Brooks touched her controls and filled the main screen with data. The display showed the attacking force as it moved through space. Hundreds of dark ships, each one the size of a small moon. They moved in perfect formation, consuming everything in their path. Admiral Amy said, "These readings match the machine intelligence we fought 10 years ago. But these ships are much bigger and more advanced." Rick nodded grimly. He'd hoped never to see machines like this again. During the Earth War, humanity had barely survived against the artificial intelligence that tried to wipe out all organic life. These new machines looked even more dangerous. "How long until they reach the populated systems?" Rick asked. "At their current speed, 18 hours, replied Captain Ben Taylor from his position at the tactical station. Ben was Rick's best ship commander and had served with him through the worst battles of the machine war and the aliens. "What is there?" "Military response? They sent for lightly armed patrol ships," Amy said, trying to keep the disbelief out of her voice. "All 4 were destroyed immediately. They have 8 ships left, but they are not really warships. They carry rescue equipment and emergency supplies." Rick closed his eyes for a moment. He thought about the peaceful aliens they had met just days ago. Those gentle beings who had never known real war were about to face an enemy that existed only to destroy. "Without help, they would all die," Sir Ben said quietly. "We could leave. These are not our people. We have no obligation to fight for them." Rick opened his eyes and looked at his officers. Every person on the bridge was a veteran of the machine war. They had all lost friends and family to artificial intelligence that showed no mercy. They knew exactly how this would end if someone did not stop it. "Send a message to the human fleet," Rick ordered. "All ships are to prepare for battle. We are going to engage the enemy." Sir Amy said carefully, "We only have 30 ships. The enemy has hundreds, and we do not know how advanced their weapons are." "I know the odds, Lieutenant," Rick replied. "But those aliens cannot defend themselves. If we do not fight, an entire galaxy full of innocent people will die. That is not going to happen on my watch." The bridge crew exchanged looks. They all knew this might be a suicide mission. But they also knew Admiral Carter was right. Someone had to stand between the machines and the defenseless aliens. Back in the council command center, a new alarm began to sound. This alarm was different, deeper, and more urgent than the others. "What is that?" Taishalan asked. "Long-range sensors have detected the main enemy force," Moldar said, his voice shaking. "They will reach the outer colonies in 16 hours. The force is ... massive, sir. Hundreds of ships, each one larger than our biggest space station. Contact the human fleet," Zelthara said suddenly. "Ask them for help." The other aliens stared at her. 3 days ago, she had been afraid of the humans and their weapons. Now she was suggesting they ask those same warriors for help. "Ambassador," Tishalan said slowly, "the humans refuse to join our alliance. They do not follow our peaceful ways." "Why would they help us?" "Because," Zelthara said, her crystal wings catching the light, "I think I finally understand what Captain Rodriguez meant when he asked about defense. Those weapons on their ships, they were not built for conquest. They were built for protection." Before anyone could respond, a new message appeared on the communication screen. It was from the human flagship. "This is Admiral Rick Carter of the United Earth Systems Fleet," the message said. The human's face was stern but not unfriendly. "We have detected the enemy force approaching your territory. We are moving to intercept. Please evacuate all civilian populations from the outer systems immediately." The aliens stared at the screen in shock. The humans were going to fight for them, even though the Council had rejected their way of life just days before. "Why?" Tishalan whispered to the screen. "Why would they risk their lives for us?" Another message came through, this one from Captain Jake Morrison on the UES Liberty. His scarred face filled the screen as he spoke. "To all Council forces, this is Captain Morrison. We are familiar with this type of enemy. They are machines that consume organic life. They cannot be reasoned with or stopped by negotiation. The only way to deal with them is through superior firepower. Stay clear of the battle zone and let us handle this." As the human fleet changed course toward the approaching machine army, the aliens finally began to understand what they had encountered. These were not conquerors or bullies. These were protectors who had learned that sometimes violence was the only answer to greater violence. The machines had awakened expecting to find the same defenseless civilizations they had encountered before. Instead, they were about to face an enemy they had never imagined, humans who had survived their own machine war and learned how to win. In 18 hours, the galaxy would learn what happened when unstoppable force met immovable defense. The peaceful aliens would discover that their gentle civilization could only exist because somewhere out there, rough people were willing to do violence on their behalf. The test was coming, and everyone knew that only one side would survive it. The human fleet emerged from hyperspace like hungry wolves entering a flock of sheep. 30 Earth warships appeared in the middle of the Devourer formation, their weapons already charging and their shields at full power. The machines had expected to find defenseless aliens. Instead, they found predators from a death world. Admiral Rick Carter stood calmly on the bridge of the UES Defiance as chaos erupted around his ship. Machine vessels the size of cities turned their massive weapons toward the human fleet. Beams that could melt asteroids lashed out in all directions. But the human ships were already moving, dancing between the attacks like fighters who had trained for this moment their entire lives. "All ships, execute pattern Delta 7, Rick," commanded into his communication device. "Remember, these machines learn from every attack. Do not use the same tactic twice." The human fleet split into 3 groups instantly. It had practiced this maneuver 1,000 times during the machine war on Earth. Each group knew exactly what to do without being told. Captain Ben Taylor led the first group in a direct assault on the largest Devourer ship. His frigate, the UES Razor, was small compared to the machine giant, but it moved like lightning. Ben had learned during the Earth War that speed and surprise were more important than size when fighting artificial intelligence. "Target their sensor. Erase first," Ben told his weapons officer. "Blind them before they can adapt to our attack patterns." The Razor fired a spread of kinetic rounds, simple metal slugs moving at incredible speed. The Devourers had shields that could stop energy weapons, but they were not ready for chunks of metal that punched through their defenses. Like bullets through paper, behind Ben's ship came Captain Nina Ross in the destroyer U.S. Thunderbolt. Nina was 34 years old and had never lost a ship under her command. Her brown hair was tied back in a tight knot, and her green eyes were focused on her target like a hawk watching a mouse. "Ben, you made them angry," Nina said over the radio as the machine ship turned its weapons toward the Razor. My turn to play. The Thunderbolt dove under the massive Devourer vessel and fired plasma torpedoes directly into its engine sections. The explosions lit up space like tiny suns. The machine ship shuddered and began to slow down, but it did not stop fighting. On the other side of the battle, Commander Lisa Grant led a squadron of human fighters against a group of smaller Devourer ships. Lisa had been promoted to lead her own command after Captain Morrison recommended her for the position. She flew her fighter like it was part of her body. "Stay close to me," Lisa told her pilots. "These machines think in straight lines. They think in curves and chaos." The human fighters swarmed around the machine ships like angry bees. They fired short bursts of energy, and then darted away before the machines could lock onto them. A few seconds. One of the Devourer's ships would explode as the human pilots found weak spots in their armor, but the machines were learning. They began to predict where the human ships would go next. Their weapons started hitting their targets more often. 3 human fighters were destroyed in brilliant flashes of light. Admiral Lisa called over the radio. "They are adapting faster than we expected. We need to change tactics again." "Understood," Rick replied. He watched the battle display on his screen and made quick calculations in his head. The machines outnumbered the humans 10-1. But humans had something the machines did not understand: the willingness to sacrifice everything for others. "All ships prepare for ramming speed," Rick ordered. The bridge crew of the Defiance looked at their admiral with shock. Ramming an enemy ship meant certain death for everyone on board. But Rick's face showed no fear, only determination. Lieutenant Amy Brooks said quietly, "Are you sure about this?" "Look at the tactical display, Amy," Rick said calmly. "We are winning, but not fast enough. 10 minutes, more machine ships will arrive. We need to end this battle now, before reinforcements show up." Amy looked at her screen and saw that Rick was right. The humans were destroying machine ships, but too slowly. They needed something dramatic to turn the tide completely. Meanwhile, Captain Jake Morrison was fighting the battle of his life aboard the UES Liberty. His ship was surrounded by 4 machine vessels, each one trying to tear his hull apart with energy weapons. Jake's crew worked like a perfect machine themselves, repairing damage as fast as it happened. "Hull breach on Deck 7, reported Chief Engineer Tom Bradley. We are losing atmosphere fast. Seal it off," Jake ordered. "How are our weapons?" "Main guns are at 60% power," replied Weapons Officer Carol Adams. "But we still have the nuclear warheads." Jake smiled grimly. The nuclear warheads were humanity's most powerful weapons, but they were also dangerous to use in close combat. One mistake could destroy both the target and the ship that fired the weapon. "Prepare nuclear warhead number 3, Jake commanded. "We are going to ram the largest machine ship and detonate on impact." The bridge went silent. Everyone knew what this meant. Jake was ordering them to sacrifice their lives to save the fleet and the alien civilians behind them. "Sir," Carol said. Softly, "there might be another way." "No," Jake replied, his voice firm but not angry. "Look around us, Carol. We are surrounded and outgunned. But we can still win this fight if we make it count." Jake turned to face his crew. These men and women had followed him through impossible battles. They had trusted him to bring them home safely from the machine war. Now he was asking them to die with him. "Anyone who wants to leave can take the escape pods," Jake said.
Ow.
"No one will think less of you." Not a single person moved. Carol smiled at her captain and turned back to her weapons console. "Nuclear warhead." "Armed and ready, sir," she said proudly. The Liberty accelerated toward the largest Devourer ship, its engines pushing the vessel faster than it was designed to go. The machine ship saw what was happening and tried to turn away, but it was too massive to move quickly. Impact in 30 seconds, reported navigator Paul Wright. All hands brace for collision. Jake activated the ship's communication system. One last time. It's Captain Morrison to all human ships. The Liberty is making our final run. Tell Earth that we did our duty. Tell the aliens that some of us know how to keep our promises. The Liberty struck the machine ship at full speed, its reinforced hull punching deep into the enemy vessel. Moment later, the nuclear warhead exploded, turning both ships into an expanding ball of fire and metal. The explosion was so bright that every other ship in the battle had to dim their screens to avoid being blinded. When the light faded, the largest Devourer ship was gone, along with Jake Morrison and his entire crew. But the sacrifice worked. The other machine ships seemed confused by the destruction of their command vessel. They began to move more slowly and make mistakes. The human fleet pressed their advantage. Destroying machine after machine with focused fire, Admiral Carter watched the battle, turned in humanity's favor, and felt both pride and sadness. Pride because his people were winning against impossible odds. Sadness because victory was costing them some of their best officers and friends. All ships, continue the attack, Rick ordered. Make Captain Morrison's sacrifice count. The battle raged for 2 more hours. Human ships darted between the massive machine vessels like fighters dancing around giants. Every few minutes, another Devourer ship would explode under concentrated human fire. But the humans were taking losses too. 7 more ships were destroyed before the last machine was finally silenced. When the shooting stopped, 23 human ships remained out of the original 30. They hung in space, their hulls scarred and their crews exhausted. Around them floated the wreckage of hundreds of machine vessels. From his command center deep underground, Council Speaker Tishalon watched the aftermath of the battle through long-range sensors. His 4 silver arms trembled as he tried to understand what he had just witnessed. They won, he whispered to Ambassador Zelthera. The humans actually won. Zelthera's crystal wings caught the light as she nodded slowly. They saved us all. We treated them like barbarians who needed to be civilized. On the communication screen, Admiral Carter's face appeared. He looked tired but not defeated. Behind him, his bridge crew worked to repair battle damage and count their losses. Council Speaker Tishalon, Rick said formally, the immediate threat has been eliminated. However, our sensors indicate that more machine forces may be approaching from outside the galaxy. We recommend that all civilian populations remain evacuated. Until we can confirm the area is secure, Tishalon found his voice with difficulty. Admiral Carter, we do not know how to thank you. You lost ships and lives defending people who rejected your friendship. Rick's expression softened slightly. Speaker Tishalon, we did not fight for your friendship. We fought because it was the right thing to do, where we come from. Protecting innocent people is not something you do for reward. It is something you do because you are human. The transmission ended, leaving the council chamber in stunned silence. The aliens finally understood what they had encountered when they met humanity. These were not conquerors or bullies. These were guardians who had learned that sometimes the only way to preserve peace was to be better at war than anyone else. The galaxy would never be the same. 6 months after the Battle of the Rim, the Galactic Council chamber looked completely different. The beautiful artwork still decorated the walls and the crystal chairs still sparkled under the lights. But now there were new seats at the great table. Simple metal chairs sat next to the elaborate alien furniture. And humans in plain uniforms sat beside aliens in ceremonial robes. Admiral Rick Carter walked into the chamber wearing his dress uniform. The dark blue fabric was clean and pressed, but everyone could see the small scars on his hands from working with damaged equipment after the battle. His gray hair was neat, but his eyes still carried the weight of command and the memory of friends who had died fighting the machines. Behind Rick came Ambassador Kate Sullivan, who had traded her military uniform for diplomatic clothes. But even in her formal dress, she moved like someone ready for action. Her blonde hair was longer now, but still practical. She carried herself with the confidence of someone who had seen war and helped build peace. The alien representatives watched the humans take their seats with a mixture of respect and nervousness. These were the beings who had saved their entire civilization, but they were also warriors from a world that bred fighters. The aliens were still learning how to deal with people who carried weapons, were not afraid to use them. Council Speaker Tishalin stood up to address the assembly. His 4 silver arms moved gracefully as he spoke, but his voice carried new understanding about the galaxy and its dangers. Friends, Tishalin began, we gather today to discuss the new defense arrangements for our sector. Admiral Carter, please. Report on the current situation. Rick stood and activated a holographic display above the table. The display showed a map of the galaxy with green areas, marking safe zones and red areas showing where machine scouts had been detected. Thank you, Speaker Tishalin, Rick said in his calm, professional voice. Our patrols have destroyed 17 more machine scout ships in the past month. Intelligence analysis suggests these are advanced units for a larger force that may arrive. Within the year, the aliens shifted nervously in their chairs. 6 months ago, the idea of enemies and military intelligence would have seemed like fantasy to them. Now, they hung on every word from their human protectors. What do you recommend? Asked Counselor Vexamuth, his skin turning a worried yellow color. We need to expand the defense fleet, Rick replied. 30 human ships are not enough to protect. An entire galactic sector? We need at least 100 ships, with crews trained in modern combat tactics. Ambassador Zelthara spread her crystal wings slightly. Admiral, how long would it take to build such a fleet? With human shipyards working at full capacity, 2 years, Rick said. But we can start training alien crews immediately on our existing ships. The aliens looked at each other with uncertainty. The idea of their own people learning to use weapons and fight battles was still hard for them to accept. They had lived in peace for so long that the concept of military service seemed foreign and frightening. Is there no other way? Asked Counselor. Nimdal, the elderly alien who remembered the old stories. Can we not negotiate with these machines? Kate Sullivan stood up to answer. Her voice was patient but firm, like a teacher explaining something important to a student. Counselor Nimdal. We have studied the machine intelligence for 10 years. They do not negotiate. They do not compromise. They exist only to consume organic life and convert it into more machines. The only language they understand is superior firepower. But surely, Nimdal continued hopefully, if we offered them uninhabited systems, they might leave us alone. Captain Ben Taylor, who had been promoted to admiral after his heroic actions in the battle, shook his head sadly. Counselor, feeding a predator does not make it less hungry. It just makes it stronger for the next attack. The discussion continued for hours. The aliens asked many questions about military strategy, defense spending, and the moral implications of preparing for war. The humans answered each question with patience, understanding that these gentle beings were struggling to accept a reality that humans had lived with their entire history. During a break in the meeting, Ambassador Zelthara approached Admiral Botts. Carter privately. Her crystal wings reflected the chamber lights as she spoke in a quiet voice. Admiral, may I ask you something personal? Of course, Rick replied. When your people first arrived here, we thought you were dangerous. We feared you would try to conquer us or force us to live by your violent ways. But instead you died protecting us. Why? Rick was quiet for a moment, thinking about Captain Morrison and the other crews who had sacrificed their lives. When he spoke, his voice was soft, but certain. Ambassador, where I come from, we have an old saying. The only thing necessary for evil to triumph is for good people to do nothing. Your people are not warriors. But you are good. You create beautiful art, you share knowledge freely, and you treat each other with kindness. That kind of goodness is rare in the universe and worth protecting. Zelthara's wings shimmered as she tried to understand. But you could have just left. You could have found another part of the galaxy to live in, away from the machines and away from us. Yes, Rick agreed. We could have. But then who would have protected you? Who would have stood between the machines and your children? Evil exists in this universe, Ambassador. Someone has to be willing to fight it. Meanwhile, in another part of the galaxy, Captain Lisa Grant stood on the bridge of humanity's newest warship, the EU's Vigilance. The ship was twice the size of the old Liberty and carried weapons that could destroy a moon. But more importantly, it had a mixed crew of humans and aliens working together. Captain, reported Lieutenant Commander Steve Parker, or Human Tactical Officer. We have completed Patrol Route 7. No machine contacts detected. Thank you, Steve, Lisa replied. She turned to her communications officer, a young Veltar, named Crystal, whose crystal body glowed softly in the bridge lighting. Any messages from the other patrol groups? All groups report negative contact, Captain, Crystal said in accented English. She had been one of the first aliens to volunteer for military service, despite her people's fear of violence. Admiral Taylor's squadron found debris from an old machine ship, but it had been dead for weeks. Lisa nodded with satisfaction. The mixed crews were working better than anyone had expected. The aliens brought intelligence and technical skills, while the humans provided combat experience and tactical knowledge. Together, they were becoming an effective fighting force. On the main screen, Lisa could see 3 other ships flying in formation with the Vigilance. 2 were human vessels with alien crew members, and 1 was a newly built ship designed jointly by human and alien engineers. The alliance was growing stronger every day. Back in the council chamber, the meeting was reaching its conclusion. The aliens had voted to approve the expansion of the defense fleet and the establishment of military training academies on 12 different worlds. It had not been an easy decision for beings who had never known war, but they had learned that peace was not free. There is one more matter, Tishlin said as the formal voting ended. The question of leadership. Who will command this new defense force? The chamber went quiet. Everyone knew this was the most important decision they would make. The aliens trusted the humans to protect them, but they also worried about giving too much power to warriors from another world. Admiral Carter stood up slowly. Speaker Tishlin, the humans appreciate your confidence in us. But this defense force should not be led by outsiders. It should be commanded by someone who represents all the species in this alliance. Do you have a recommendation? Asked Selthera Rick. Smiled slightly and looked across the table at his alien colleagues. I recommend a joint command structure. Human tactical commanders working with alien strategic planners. Your people understand this galaxy better than we do. Our people understand warfare better than you do. Together we can build something stronger than either of us alone. The aliens discussed this proposal in their various languages for several minutes. Finally, Tishlin stood to announce their decision. The Council accepts Admiral Carter's recommendation. We propose that you serve as Supreme Military Commander with Ambassador Zelthara as your strategic planning advisor. Together, you will build the defense force this galaxy needs. As the meeting ended and the representatives began to leave, Kate Sullivan reflected on how much had changed since that first disastrous diplomatic contact. The aliens had learned that peace required strength to defend it. The humans had learned that their strength was most valuable when used to protect others rather than conquer them. Outside the Great Chamber, the mixed crews of the defense fleet prepared for their next patrol missions. Human and alien children played together in the station's recreation areas. Growing up in a galaxy where different species worked together for the common good, the machines were still out there. Somewhere in the dark between stars, they would return eventually, probably in greater numbers and with improved weapons. But when they came, they would not find the defenseless civilizations they expected. They would find a galaxy that had learned to fight back, protected by beings who understood that sometimes the only way to preserve peace was to be better at war than anyone else.